the Texans are bad, and it's awfully hard to justify spending that much money to go to a stadium and watch a game to see bad football.
On today's Top Shelf Tuesday edition of the Odd Coaches Podcast, Dr. Adams and the OCP Team of Correspondents recap NFL Week 13, discuss Deshaun Watson's return, review Dr. Adams' strictly for entertainment purposes only picks, as well as previewing Week 14 of the NFL season. Welcome to today's show.
Greetings and salutations and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with me today is our cavalcade of stars. I'm looking on my screen, America's favorite administrator, Robert Anthony. Robert, how are you today?
As always, sir, I am living the dream. Some good football this evening.
All right, and Raiders Nation, stand up. Chris Shower, how are you, sir?
Very, very, very good day. Thank you to Baltimore for taking care of Denver finally. And Cincinnati, boom. And then the Raiders. The Raiders are the only ones that won in our division today.
Yes, and that puts you in a solid fourth place, I'm sure. I'm just joking.
Hey, we're going into playoffs.
The unofficial benefactor of the Odd Coaches Podcast, and KJ now knows why that's funny. Brian Bobian, how are you, sir?
Decidedly middling.
And my favorite team captain, Will Cotton, captain for life. How are you?
Doing great. Great weekend. Great. Both sides, eat college and pro. So I'm very happy.
And welcome back, Mr. King. Mike King is here. Giants Nation is in the house as well.
Just glad no one had to headbutt a wall this time for the tie.
Oh, man. You actually remember that game. All right, fans.
That's right.
We're going to jump right on into it. Cleveland and Houston. These are the games of interest I had. One, that was a lot of nothing. Two, there was no real boos and hisses. The place was half full. And it just reminded me that people really just don't care about these things. Robert, can you tell me your thoughts on that build up to nothing called Cleveland versus Houston?
I guess it wasn't all that interesting to anybody to begin with. I mean, the Texans are bad, and it's awfully hard to justify spending that much money to go to a stadium and watch a game to see bad football. That's all I got. I don't know what else to say about that.
That's good enough for me, Forrest Gump. That's good enough for me. All right. That's all I got to say about that. All right. Baltimore, Denver. Lamar is hurt. Lamar is hurt again. He's on the list again. He's sick. He hurt his knee. We don't want any bad injuries. That's not what we're saying. But, man, this is a lot of energy for a team that more likely than not will, if they make it past the first round, will certainly lose in the second round. Any thoughts, sir, about Baltimore playing that game horribly played against Denver?
Keeping it interesting, but the flies are falling and the guys are falling and the players are dropping. So, I mean, it's not going to be able to sustain going into the playoffs. So, unfortunately, I just think they're just running out of gas, one of those things. Luckily, they got the win, though. Luckily, they got the win because Broncos have been ran out of gas.
Oh, my goodness. Kansas City versus Cincinnati. They keep telling me it's a rivalry, but as I used to tell my players in the locker room, it's not a rivalry if only one side's winning. Joe Burrow seems to have KC's number. Chris, you have watched Kansas City football begrudgingly over the years. Tell me your thoughts on Kansas City, Cincinnati.
I am so happy. Okay. I can't tell you. And that final play, I think Mahomes might have hurt his ankle.
I missed the final play.
Yeah. I mean, they came in and they kind of stopped him. And, yeah, he hobbled off the field. But, so he has a week, but we'll see what happens.
I'm still debating that touchdown when he stretched it out, but that's another story for another day. And finally, fans, the Washington Commanders took on the New York Football Giants. They played 4 quarters plus extra time. with no winners. Brian, we'll start with you, sir. Any thoughts on that barn burner of a game?
So it was good football right up until the 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and then everything just went to hell. It feels like a tie was appropriate, given what kind of happened. I think Washington is going to have to find a way after the bye to make sure that Daniel Jones doesn't run. And every time that we've played, every time the Commanders have played Daniel Jones, they make him look like Patrick Mahomes with his feet, and I don't understand it. I mean, they got to figure out a way to stop that. But a tie was appropriate.
All right, and Mike, welcome back, sir. Wanted to give you the last word in this little portion of the segment. What are your thoughts on the Giants and Commanders?
I think both teams probably feel like they should have won the game at different points. The Giants have too many practice squad players. If the Commanders were better coached, they would have continuously attacked those practice squad players. When they decided not to, they didn't do anything. And when they decided to, they scored really quickly. So it doesn't seem hard to me. You got this guy, McLaurin, who no one could guard. And every time the ball went to him, good things happened. And the ball didn't go to him enough. So I feel like there's one side that, and I don't think the Giants coaches were perfect today, but I think, like I said at the beginning of the season, Commanders have a ton of talent. I just don't understand why it's not used differently.
All right. And speaking of using talent differently, I'm going to jump to Will on this one because these are my random thoughts of the week. I had a chance to watch Buffalo play New England, and Patriots quarterback Mac Jones threw for a career high of 382 against Minnesota last week, but just completed 22 of 36 passes for less than 200 yards and 1 touchdown on Thursday night. During the game, the Amazon cameras caught the second-year signal caller saying some things that, quite frankly, he probably shouldn't say. But, hey, he was frustrated. So, Will, as a player, I want you to be a player again. Did Mac Jones have a point? Should he have been frustrated? Or will you shut up and just run what I told you to run? Any thoughts, sir?
I think when he's in the game and you're actually in the game and you're understanding the flow of what's going on, what's happening when you're running plays, he should totally coaches need to listen to him. I mean, I get it. He's younger, but I mean, come on, man. We have other players, other coaches who are given the length to be able to do whatever they need to do to win the game. And you can't grow his skill set if you're still playing that dink and dunk kind of thing. It's not really good to his development. So I just don't think I feel him. You know, I know Bill Belichick is very respected and he knows what he's talking about. And no one's ever going to say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. But that was kind of a little antiquated in my opinion, you know, and it's just something where you have to kind of do things that you haven't done before. You know, if he wants to continue to grow, he may not want to grow. He's just like, nope, this is my system. It is what it is. But, you know, if a player is telling you like, hey, man, like, let's throw, come on, let's go. And you're in there, I think you should at least give him a call, listen and do something, you know, and don't do the same thing and keep losing.
And I asked this folks to Will because Will played for me. And there were many a times where guys tried to look off calls that yours truly made. And sometimes I actually did defer on the court when they said, we're not going to run this right now. And then we talked about it the next day at practice.
Patriots offense. Isn't that Joe Judge?
Yeah.
You were watching the Giants.
The Giants, yeah.
Joe Judge, and Matt
Shocking.
Patricia.
Yep.
Shocking.
Yep.
3rd and 10, QB sneak. Yep.
Yeah, they still. I mean, let them play. You know, I mean, you like, come on, you can't keep the reins on them or the training wheels. Let them ride. At least you'll know next year. Like, man, look, he can't ride the bike, or this kid can really do it. Like, stop crippling them. This is crazy, but the Patriot way.
Well, fans, when we get back from this short break, we're going to find out today's best and all types of other things from our team of correspondents on the Odd Coaches podcast.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Fowler Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams, just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 2. It's all about the team correspondence. So let's find out today's best. And Chris, yes, I will start with you. What's the best thing you saw today, sir?
Two teams that everybody loved to hate on all season coming through with wins. Cincinnati over Kansas City and the Raiders over the Chargers.
All right, so that's the best thing you saw. All right, Mike, what was the best thing you saw, sir?
Either 49ers winning after the quarterback gets hurt, or the Eagles, AJ Brown gets a revenge game. They looked really good against a good team.
Do you think they look like the number one team? Sorry. Brian, you're next.
I'm going to go with Brock Purdy coming in for Jimmy G, and it looks like he's going to have to do it for the rest of the year because I just saw come through that he's out for the year.
Whoa.
Did you hear about how
news.
Brock was the very last pick in the draft?
Oh, really?
So that's why Mr. Ravel was trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Brian, thank you for that update. And during the commercial break, somebody will figure it out because I don't have 0.5 here. All right, Robert, the best thing you saw today?
I got to give Chris's Raiders some props, man. That's 3 in a row. It looks like they're figuring it out. Throw it to Devontae Adams as much as you can. They don't have a lot of margin for error though, because right now 7 wins. 7 losses. 8 losses. 9 and 8 ain't going to get you in the AFC. So they don't have a whole lot of margin for error, but they're looking pretty good right now.
It'll come down to like it does every year. We should have won this one game. Whatever game that was, you can point to like 4 or 5 of them.
All right. Will, what was the best thing you saw today?
Cincinnati defense. Man, they really
ripped that ball out of Kelsey's hand. I saw that.
Man, they were on them like the first kick. They were on them, man. Mahomes only had pedestrian 1 touchdown, maybe like 230, I think, and I think he definitely completed I'm looking right here 16. Man, he looking like Zach Wilson out there. You know what I'm saying? If you can make that kid look like that, you're gonna win every time, man. And they just played great, man. So shout out to the Bengals defense for real.
All right, we're gonna stay with you, Will, and tell me what was your biggest surprise today?
San Francisco the QB. I don't even know the guy's name. I was watching the game and I was like, oh, they lost Jimmy. We'll see what happens. And then, I thought about it. I'm like, the dude has a great offensive line, a great defensive line. The guy has great wide receivers. He has a great tight end. He has a great, a running back who could do anything. I'm like, all this kid is just don't mess up. You know what I'm saying? Don't drop the church money on the ground. Don't do that. So he played great, man. The kid played great. And I want to give a props to, even though he didn't win, the QB for the Rams, man. That kid really played it hard, man. They didn't get the win, but they played hard, boy. So I give him props.
All right. Mike, what about you? What was your biggest surprise today?
I think the Lions, because the Jags have been playing people close. Like they beat the Ravens, they lost by 10 to the Chiefs, and then the Lions just destroy them. I think if the Lions made the playoffs, they're going to be very dangerous.
Slow down.
Well at the right time.
See, you just went too far.
Yeah,
Now you're saying the Lions are going to be in. Like, who are they going to replace from the NFC East?
it would be
That's the school
if they got
teacher in you.
if they took the Giants or Commanders last spot, or Seahawks, they're kind of right there. And if you look at how they've played for the most recent part of the year, they've been really good.
Yeah, they play hard for that, and they really do.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you? What was the biggest surprise for the day?
How much trouble Baltimore had with Denver. That was the biggest surprise. I know Baltimore, they were just dropping like flies all over the field all the time. I was like, hey, are they playing in Denver or what? I mean, everybody was getting injured. At almost every place there was some Raven on the ground. But the fact that they had that much trouble with Denver is really concerning. And I really wonder if Baltimore can hang on and even make the playoffs now without Lamar Jackson, which is supposed to be days or weeks.
All right, Brian, what about you? What was the biggest surprise?
The Dolphins pretty much laid an egg. I was surprised about that. I thought that it was the Tua to Tyreek show again, but beyond that, they didn't run the ball at all. And that was, probably because they were behind, after play one, they were behind for most of the game. So, but yeah, I thought that they would play a little bit stronger against the 49ers. And just real quick, the Detroit remaining schedule is the Vikings, the Jets, the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers. They aren't, if they run it,
no one's gonna want to play them.
They're not running it. So.
Hey, I'll play them in the Super Bowl. The Raiders will play them in the Super Bowl. It's okay.
We're school teachers, man. We believe in everybody.
Well,
Robert, what was your biggest surprise?
It's a surprise, but it's also a disappointment.
So we'll combine them both, sir.
The Broncos are averaging 13.8 points per game. They signed Russell Wilson for God knows how much money, and they're not even getting 2 touchdowns a game. Their defense has given up 17 points a game. If they could score at all, this conversation, the conversation in the AFC West would be a whole lot different.
Robert, they did the stat, and they said if he averaged, I think, like 2 touchdowns a game, or they scored like at least like 5 touchdowns or something, they'd be like 10-2 right now, like something crazy.
They've scored fewer points than anybody in the NFL, including the Texans.
Actually, they're just one player away. I think they're just one player away.
One player away.
That one that can give you 0.2 points.
Yeah. And Cortland Sutton was supposed to take that leap, and he really regressed really bad this year. And Jerry Jeudy, both just kind of did not move forward in their progression.
They're just offensively, they are so challenged. Just being a casual fan, I have no answers for that. But how disappointing must that be?
Oh, I have another surprise. Did you know
Make your surprise
out of the playoff team, out of the playoff bound teams or potential playoff bound teams, the NFC won 3 out of 3 games. Right? You had Minnesota over the Jets, you had the Eagles over the Titans, and you had San Francisco over Miami.
Yeah.
Okay, big surprise when AFC should be like controlling everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Brian, what about you? What about your biggest disappointment of the week?
I think it wasn't so much it was more like a foregone conclusion, but Deshaun Watson did not play well.
Base hit.
And they won because of the defense and
the special teams,
and just because Houston is so bad. But and they're going to play him because they are going to pay him. But we had the conversation last week about Jacoby Brissett staying in there And at this point, he gives them a better chance to win. I don't think they have a shot at the playoffs anyway, so they're going to play Deshaun because it makes sense for them long term. But I was disappointed in his play.
All right, Chris, what was your biggest disappointment today?
That we've gone through week 13 and the NFC South doesn't have a team that's at 500.
Not even
bad.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's horrible. To me,
They're
that's
really bad.
Tampa Bay is the closest one to having anything, and one of these teams has to make it into the playoffs. Can you believe it?
They're bad. Mike, what about you? What was your biggest disappointment today?
My biggest disappointment, when you have a catch for a first down at 35, you're up by a touchdown at that point. You're going to seal the game. A player who's the center goes over to his player to tell how strong his teammate is. But because of where he's standing, the official doesn't see that he's talking to his player, and he thinks that he's going to the Washington players and saying, look how strong I am when I wasn't in. It doesn't, and it's John Mara's fault because John Mara wanted all these taunting penalties called. He wasn't taunting anyone. That would have iced the game. That's my biggest disappointment.
We'll go ahead, Brian.
I mean, the officiating
both
was
teams was terrible.
horrendous the entire game.
The whole game.
I don't want to call it out, but it was bad the whole time.
The giant guy who got called after the game, he said, "It's tough when you're playing against two teams. I'm going to get fined for that," and he will.
Well, I mean,
it was for both teams. Though. It was both teams.
Yeah, one of the Washington offensive tackle, Thibodeau, tore his helmet off on one of the plays where Heineke got sacked or something. I mean, it's like stuff like that.
It was one of the worst officiated games for both teams.
Egregious stuff.
Yeah.
So, Will, save me. What's your biggest disappointment today?
Biggest appointments are San Diego, the Chargers. The team was supposed to win the AFC West, but they ended up not. Now they ended up 6-6. Now they're terrible. They're unwatchable, and now they have their whole team. They got Eckler, they got Keenan Allen, and he's pretty healthy. I mean, he's not even getting like the questionable tag. You know, Bosa is healthy. He's playing. I think Bosa is playing at least. Yeah, Bosa's playing. Derwin James, this great safety. Standard Chargers, just like they was in the early 2000s. They're just gonna make a little noise and just fold like paper.
All right, so I'm gonna stay with Will. What should we look for next week, man?
Next week, man, can the Bengals continue? They have a run, man. They are beating some good teams, man. They're getting hot at the right time. Can they continue? Who are they playing next week? I'm not even sure. We'll figure it out when we go to the next segment. I'll tell y'all but
playing the Browns.
Oh yeah, great. Hey, that's the rival. I guess a rival. Do they call that a rival in Ohio?
Yes, it's Cleveland, Cincinnati.
There we go.
Remember the late great Sam Weiss? You don't live in Cleveland, you live in Cincinnati. So
that's going to be good. So definitely, let's focus on the Bengals. Let's see if. Yeah, let's look at the Bengals. I'm focused on them now.
Okay, Mr. King, what should we look for next week?
I'll go Giants-Eagles. I thought the spread would be like 12-13. It's only 6.5. So that's one of those spreads where it's like, maybe they know something I don't. This will be more of a game than I'm thinking. But we'll see. The Giants-Eagles always a little nasty. That'll be a good one.
Robert, what should we look for next week?
I kind of agree with Mike. Looking at the schedule, there's a lot of not a great week of games. I don't think Giants. I feel like the Giants kind of have to win that game.
Well, yeah, I think so.
In order to stay in it, I just feel like losing that game with a tie, because a tie drops you half game behind everybody else. They got to win that game.
Yeah. Ryan, what about you, sir? With your team on a bye?
Yeah. Well, I'm obviously interested in the Giants for the rest of the season, because I think it's going to come down to those to the Giants and Commanders for one of the last 2 playoff spots. Looking at the schedules, the Seahawks actually have a pretty favorable schedule, and they may actually end up with one of those spots as well. But I'm also looking at a couple of divisional matchups. The Ravens play the Steelers, and they play the Steelers twice in the last 5 games of the season. The Steelers are no juggernaut, but they are playing better than their record indicates at this point, and they're healthier than they have been all year. So they could really, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they could very well play spoilers, for the Ravens. And then the Lions and Vikings. We've talked about the Lions playing above their heads at this point, and it'll be interesting to see what happens against the Vikings, whether they play up. The Vikings have historically this year played down to their opponents, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Lions.
All right, and Chris, what should we look for, my friend?
I think Baltimore is on its way down just because Lamar's out. I think San Francisco has a lot to worry about. Even though the Mr. Irrelevant did well this week, I don't think so. And I think Seattle's going to take that division.
All right.
I think that you're going to see. I think you're going to see that next week.
I think
reality.
I think that's there's a potential for that, but the Niners' schedule is not strong. I mean, they have a guy that's running quarterback that was picked last. Right.
Who was the guy they were supposed to have that was supposed to take Jimmy G's job?
Trey Lance.
Trey Lance.
He's out for the season.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, they don't have anybody.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, this guy goes down. Who's going to play quarterback?
I am sure they will find someone off.
Looking for a job.
The Commanders grab a Heineke off the brick wall, so I'm sure somebody can take that gig. So,
I mean,
all right.
Well, also Dolphins Chargers should be at least a lot of points. That's
yeah.
If you're not doing anything, like 38, 35.
Trash the Chargers. I mean, come on, Will. You just trashed the Chargers, and now you're saying they're going to score a lot of points?
Yeah, they'll lose, but they get excited. Yeah.
All right. So when we get back, we're going to talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only on the Odd Coaches podcast.
There is an old business adage that says, what gets measured and monitored gets done. It is also fact that deadlines spur action. That is what the CKA SAVE Project Academic Monitoring Service can do for student athletes. Measure and monitor their academic progress to improve their grades. Our academic monitoring services provide ongoing academic support for student athletes for a designated period of time. Our academic success coaches work with student athletes on time management and organizational skills, along with improving their ability to self-advocate. Every few weeks, our academic success coaches meet with student athletes to assess their academic progress, as well as provide ongoing academic advising. If needed, student athletes have access to CKA Learning Specialists who provide virtual core subject academic support for student athletes. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free virtual consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast. In segment 3, we're going to talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only. The OCP top 5. Number 1 are the Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles still have 1 loss, and gosh darn it, they're the best team as of week 13. And as soon as they lose a game, I'll turn heel. But right now, we're rolling. 2 is Minnesota. They keep winning, and they keep winning well. 3 is Buffalo. 4 are the Bengals. I'm jumping on the Bengals wagon. They beat Kansas City straight up. And 5 is Kansas City. On the outside looking in, Dallas, because at some point the other shoe's going to drop, and I hope it's not when I bet on them, like tonight with the 10.5 point spread. And they keep winning. So until Baltimore loses, we're going to have them on the outside looking in. This week, I was 1-3-1 I took Kansas City -2. That didn't work out for me.
Mm.
Chris, I had the Chargers and Raiders over 49.5, and somebody couldn't kick a field goal. So thank you for nothing. Okay. My 2 play of the week was Baltimore, Cleveland. My 3 play of the week was San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Kansas City. And Mr. King, my upset of the week were the Giants. I was very excited until the last few minutes of the game, and then there goes my upset. So,
Covered.
no, it was
Yeah.
tie, so I got my $10 back. So, season-long win totals. Robert took my thunder a little bit. Pittsburgh, it's over 7.5, and they're at 5 wins right now, so I'll take it. Jacksonville's over 6.5, and they're at 4. They did not look good today, and Trevor looked like he was banged up today. Buffalo is over 11.5, and they're at 9 wins, so I feel very comfortable with that. Will, I actually have the Chargers over 10 wins, and they're at 6. So I'm like other people who bought into the hype in the beginning of the year, and now I'm just holding on. Minnesota was over 9, and they're at 10 wins, so at least I got something. I have New Orleans over 8. They play Monday night, and a game that very few people will watch. So I hope they win because they're at the halfway point. Philadelphia was over 9. They're at 11, so I win that one. And I have San Francisco over 10. They have 8 wins, but Jimmy G is out for the season with a broken foot, folks, at home. So, yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Week 14 games to watch. I got the Jets and the Bills. I got the Vikings and the Lions. I got the Eagles and the Giants. And I've got Tampa Bay versus San Francisco. Those are the 4 that I want to watch because I keep screaming to everybody. It rarely ends well. It rarely ends well. A lot of teams on bye. Atlanta's on a bye. Chicago, Green
All
Bay,
bums. All
Indianapolis,
bums. Stink.
New Orleans on a bye, and the Washington Commanders are on a bye. So in terms of final thoughts, Robert, we'll start with you. Any final thoughts as we end week 13 and move on to week 14?
You got quarterbacks out. You got Jimmy G out. You got Lamar Jackson out. Those 2 teams going forward, what are they going to do? That's going to be something to watch for sure.
All right, Chris, what about you, sir?
I think they've just made an opening for the Raiders. I think the Raiders are going to make it into the playoffs. All these injuries, okay? No, but seriously, Vegas goes back to another home game in Los Angeles to take on the Rams on Thursday night, and I think the Raiders. Oh yeah, they'll whoop the Rams. Yeah, and we'll go 6-7. And I think that we're going to run the table. I think that we're going to take care of Kansas City in the final week, and we're going to be 10-7, and we'll just see how everything else falls out.
Okay. Brian, what about you, sir? Any final thoughts?
I'm hopefully in the next Giants game, the Commanders will have their full complement of defensive ends and will be able to contain a little bit better than they did this week. Chase Young should be back finally.
You've been telling me that 3 weeks now, Brian. Chase Young's coming back.
I haven't been saying anything. This is my first proclamation. I think he's actually going to be back on a pitch count, but he'll be back. And then Montez Sweat was out with a concussion treatment all game today. Also, I know this is a football podcast, but just also saw that Fred McGriff was elected to the Hall of Fame by the Players Committee. So the guy on your shirt will be out by 4 votes, unfortunately.
Don didn't. All right.
Wait a second. You said Fred McGriff, but
Crime Dog.
Looking for another name, sir.
The Crime Dog.
None of the steroid era guys got more than 4 votes.
They never failed one test. Anyway, Mike King, what are we looking
I didn't say steroid users, Dr. Adams. I said steroid era guy.
You got murderers. You got all kinds of. You got cheaters. Rest in peace, Caleb here. You've got all kinds of folks in the Hall of Fame. Jiminy Crickets. I miss you, Walter. Michael, what do you got?
I think after the Giants lose to the Eagles, we've got the regular season game of the year between the Giants and Commanders. Winner, because of a tie, will have the tiebreaker and pretty much is going to get it. And I think that'll be a fun one. And I'm not scared of Ron Rivera getting 2 weeks to look at this game. It doesn't scare me at all. The talent scares me. Ron Rivera's 2 weeks doesn't scare me.
I'm sorry. I got to reset Tom Amansky's back-to-back AAU champions.
That's right.
With Fred McGriff. I'm sorry. I had to get that one out. Back-to-back AAU champions with Tom Amansky and Fred McGriff with the generic hat on. All right. Will, you've got the last word, sir. What should we look for?
Next week is looking good, man. We got a lot of good games that look fun. Can the Jets actually, sound like they're true and beat the Bills? I don't think so. Dallas gets a nice powder puff with the Texans, the little intercontinental championship, I guess, in Texas. Okay.
That's more of a TV title match.
Yeah.
Intercontinental title match.
But the funniest thing for me was Deshaun Watson looked very guilty out there. He was looking very bad.
He hadn't played in 700 days.
Hey, look,
man.
if he was out there and he was dropping dimes and he was like, 300
he was
yards.
That thing in the dirt, man.
He was man. Hey, look, you're playing guilty. Kobe was going through that and he was dropping 38 with like 20 minutes. Get out of here. You over here throwing picks all the ways. Come on, man. You're looking guilty. Strictly entertainment, but looking guilty.
All right. Well, fans, Will's got me laughing, got me knocking my headset off. That's funny. But he was throwing that thing in the dirt. And then Brian got me resetting Tom Amansky and the crime dog Fred McGriff. And that dude's in before Barry Bonds. Come on, man.
Doesn't look like.
As Nick Saban would say, if we played each other, who would be favored? Okay. So,
That's why he didn't get in. Because he sounded like he was begging. And come on, man. You ain't making it in Alabama with 2 losses and you begging. Definitely ain't making it.
all right.
I was actually surprised. I thought the committee was going to do some shenanigans and get Bama in there.
If they had one loss, they were definitely going to get in.
Yeah.
But 2 losses, and then he tried to little, you got to play me. Come on, man. They crying. They probably saw that. They were like, yeah, he ain't going to get this joint in. We ain't going to get Alabama now.
Hey, I'll say this. If TCU had gotten thumped like USC did, that would have been really interesting.
Why didn't they just give that boy the ball again? But that's another story.
It was, I'm telling you, Saban going on and putting that little video ruined it. They were like, TCU lost. So they were like, well, we can give Alabama we can get him back in the playoffs. And they put out a little stupid video and he was like, well, we don't need to do this. And we have all these wins. And I'm like, bruh, man, take your ass on to Alabama, dog. Go take to the Chick-fil-A, go take that joint to the Taco Bell Bowl. Get out of here.
So fans, on behalf of my tag team partner, Coach Mike Francis, and our Cavalcade of Stars, and Coach Prime in Colorado, and I hope he listens to the show. He doesn't. I am Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast. And we will see you on the sidelines. Until next time, take care. And congratulations to Fred McGriff. Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. So should Roger Clemens.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.